Hello, welcome to the OPI Lifecycle Working Group meeting for November 28th, 2023. Our meeting last week did not occur. We did not reach quorum, most likely due to the holiday in North America. The week before that, we had an action item to start working on a document. Although we had no volunteers to actually work on it. It's on my to-do list, or at least to start it. I have not gone to that point yet because I'm trying to basically wrap up my year. And I guess that leads to an item of housekeeping. I'm out next week. So I guess someone will need to run the meeting if I'm not available. So if there are any volunteers, let me know. Worst comes to worst, I can always connect and start the recording and end it. So whatever y'all want to
do. Who has the ability to start the recording?
So I have the host key. I believe Boris also has the host key. It just requires that someone have the host key.
Yeah, if you want to send me that, I can do it next week.
Okay, I will send it your way, and we'll go from there.
Judy, did you see my Slack message?
I did. My intent is to try and take that and start to transform that into a document. I have not had time.
Okay.
So, aside from housekeeping items and next week, there's a request from Slack to talk about Redfish. Do we want to jump into that?
Yeah, it was actually my request because we kind of spent some time on the Redfish a couple of weeks ago. Then we switched to our discussions on PLDM. So if we want first to continue on the PLDM stuff, I don't mind. But I wanted to make sure that we do not abandon the Redfish and that we can put both of these things in a bigger context, because I think we never actually, at least in this forum, or at least during the time when I was joining those meetings, I don't recall us putting both of these things in one picture. I mean, to say who is responsible for what in the overall broader life cycle, because we divided our work into inventory, life cycle, then PLDM sensors, Redfish. But I think that we also need some kind of discussion on the connection of all of those. And then I also had a discussion this week with some folks from Intel who made me aware about the PyDPU. So I think that's where it all fits together, and I wanted to simply bring that that question or that topic to our discussion, to maybe someone to give us, maybe Boris, to give us some overview on where that fits in the overall picture. But if you've done that before, then I'm sorry, then send me to some previous recording on that.
We have been focused on the internals in regards to getting machine online, and in terms of booting a boot sequence and handling communication cases, or what we trying to reach that consensus. And I think the consensus we reached on that area was we're not probably really going to reach consensus. We can hope for I can't think of the terminology, but basically the USB transport bus as a possible future solution that will solve all of our problems, but that doesn't exactly exist today. So I guess centering back to the actual orchestration of the device and how to control and manage it, this probably makes sense. And I think we probably do need to frame it from which direction we're trying to manage and control and do things with it from. I think that's a key delineator that we also need to be mindful of, because there are different security models various vendors want to have and support because their customers want to have and support them. So we should probably, in that whole framing exercise, frame it how we're perceiving it.
Okay, so from the perspective of the boot flows that we were discussing, I have also an internal plan to review that internally at Intel. So if there is, I'm trying to also understand what was our goal. Do we want to mandate those diagrams to somehow all the vendors to align to them, or to have a clear picture, or what are the possible options that that these scenarios might look like? Because if you want to see like the specific of a given XPU vendor, then I saw also on the GitHub the ways where we have vendor specific chapters or diagrams, and if you want to like have a documentation of that, what that looks like on each vendor's side, and then I can provide that input after the review.
Okay, so I think the underlying challenge that we have there is vendors have varying comfort levels with additional internal complexity in terms of what is doing the control aspect of the boot sequence of the overall system, and if they're comfortable with having an basically extra logic inside their BMC performing additional control actions or not. And I think that's the point we reached not last week but the week before, which was that we're probably not going to necessarily agree on there being one path because of that varying comfort level that exists inside hardware vendors. So we probably need to focus on here are the options that exist, or the mechanisms and how they're being approached, and then here's what we think the future best path is, but we also recognize we're not there yet, and we may not get there until this is standardized at a device level. And I guess the PCI SIG would have to do that.
Yes, this is Reza from HP, representing essentially an OEM point of view, in that we do not want to be selective in terms of which, DPU, IPU, XPU is supported in our servers. At the same time, we do not have the resources to develop unique management code, BMC code, and unique BIOS UEFI code for different vendors, right? So it means that we will, we'll probably say things like, "I'm sorry, we can't support this particular vendor because we don't have the resources to develop unique code for you." And so, part of us being engaged in this organization is so that we can have, so if not a standard, at least a pseudo standard or a de facto standard that we can adhere to, that allows the platform, allows the server to support as many XPUs as possible from multiple vendors without having to write special code for anyone. That's what our objective is.
Okay. That is what I expected, and to me it was also important to understand whether we all want to go in the direction that the BMC, the host BMC, is the like the orchestrator of the overall boot flow always.
I think that is absolutely necessary.
Okay, that is clear also. Good. That was my understanding, but I just wanted a confirmation of that.
Sorry, I
because,
missed that. Can you repeat the last sentence?
That the host BMC, not the IPU's BMC, but the host BMC is responsible for managing the overall boot of the server platform.
The boot sequence specifically.
The boot sequence, yes.
Yeah.
So IPU is a client in this moment. Or XPU, sorry.
I'm not sure it's necessarily a client, but it is engaged in the overall sequence diagram. So I think that necessitates the overall that the disconnect and comfort level issue that exists there with that vendors have. It underscores the importance for us to go ahead and get that written down. If anyone would like to volunteer to post something to GitHub, that would be helpful. The earliest I'm going to probably get something is either very late this week or sometime the week after next. And if there's nothing else in the subject of boot orchestration, should we go ahead and discuss Redfish?
Sounds good.
Okay, so in the context of Redfish, I was hoping to have that ready for today, but I have started to work on putting the commands that we have defined for those areas, the example commands that we have on the GitHub. I wanted to put them in a more context on, for example, giving the examples of the full flows, because I think that if we want to be consistent on having the minimum Redfish schema components or pieces that all vendors need to support, what we have there is a starting point, but it's not a complete list yet. Because we need to also have some, for example, if I'm talking about the piece that is doing the update of the firmware component, I think we also need to, and my proposal is, and I hope I'll show you that that example in the next forum, in the next week's forum. To, for example, give a flow on how it would look like from getting the current version of a given software component to doing the update, to successfully finishing that, and, for example, getting that version again, right? So because that only gives us the really complete picture of which schema elements we want to have. And then I haven't done that before, so my question is on what would be our final outcome of that work. Would that be only the examples that we keep in the OPI, or a kind of document that we want to publish version and then for example track it and say, okay, here is the set that we all committed to, that all vendors committed to. So what is our goal in that Redfish let's say area? Because in PLDM it was quite clear. We wanted as a forum to define what we want to go with to the MTF and standardize it. With Redfish, it's slightly different because there is no such thing as a standardizing body for minimum elements of the schemas. There are schemas in several versions, and that's it. So where we would like to end up with this, and that I need that in order to like continue the work on that to do it in a meaningful way.
Boris, would you like to?
Sure. In my view, we can here define the common schema across DPU vendors. We can then create a validator for this schema. And I think ARM, whether it's Daniil or somebody else, suggested to help us with that schema validation piece. From the PyDPU and GoDPU projects, my goal is to create an open source tool so customers can just use either library or CLI, we support both of them, to communicate exactly in the same way to all the DPU vendors that participate in this forum in OPI. So basically, I want to do all the basic operation that Redfish standard schema supports by priority defined by our customers. So I would say, discovery, resets, reboots, certificate management, account management, firmware updates, all of that things that we can start, inventory, CPU, memory, local storage, stuff like that. So this is what I want to do from the OPI perspective. In order to become a real project, we have a couple of existing big companies who do orchestration, whether it's Red Hat or Canonical or others. So we would like, once we create that, either library, CLI or whatever, we would like to start integration of those tools into the existing ecosystem, whether it's Canonical BMAS or Ironic or somebody else. But basically, from the code perspective, my objective is to create an open source library and CLI tool that either other companies or directly our clients, customers can use in order to communicate and perform day-to-day operations with DPUs. I gave several examples. What they are. It's my view.
So
Okay, so based on the name, the PyDPU will be focusing only on that XPU part. So not, for example, the overall server platform, but to manage the IPU or XPU or DPU.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. My goal for PyDPU and GoDPU to only communicate with the IMC, BMC, or if lack of those, some service, like in, I think, MD Pensando case, right? It could be over Redfish running inside the cores. So communicate directly with this entity and not with platform BMC. We have enough tooling that communicate with the servers. We don't need another one, but I want to create a single tool that communicates directly with the DPU and IPU.
Cool. Thank you for that explanation.
So one aspect that we probably need to keep in mind is a tool and example is very useful, especially for one-off operations. When we start talking about vendor adoption, they may not directly adopt a tool or code that's provided in community, specifically because the challenges start changing at scale. That's probably just one aspect to keep in mind. So it's important to have the validator so that there is documentation of what is expected. And from there can also be a mapping and of their customer requirements into what does that look like? How does it need to interact? And so really, for us to make real forward progress, we do need to go ahead and start working on a validator template.
Okay, and that validator would also be under the umbrella of the OPI, or is it or it belongs to some other standardizing bodies, forums?
So the pattern I have seen is Dell employees have specifically posted validator profiles to projects. So I suspect that would be the model is that we would probably say this is a validator that could be used to be run against a BMC or a management controller interface exposing Redfish for an XPU. And that we would, as a community, expect this to pass.
And now that we have the actual hardware lab, we do expect to have, in addition to the CI/CD pipeline that we created, and we can use Redfish mockups to actually download the code from the BMC and run the mockup testing with our tooling. We also expect to run it with real hardware and test it with real DPUs and APUs in our hardware lab.
In order to pass this kind of validator, would it only take into account the list that we defined, or it goes also with like the mandatory elements of the Redfish schemas as well?
So you define the endpoints and the actual data types that you expect, and you're able to indicate if the resource is required or if it's optional, if memory serves. I've got one of the validators someplace, and there's some examples with the actual DMTF tool as well. So it's fairly straightforward in the grand scheme of the universe.
Okay, thank you.
The big challenge is going to be mapping workflows to usage. In other words, not everyone is going to have a usage requirement that requires users. And so we as a community have to go, is users required or is it optional? And then use the validator and this forum to actually try and standardize upon that.
I agree. And again, because I want to be outcome driven, I created already the PyDPU repository with Redfish commands already up and running. I do encourage starting validating those with all the vendors, doing actual code reviews and testing, and see where we end up, because otherwise we'll just keep defining schemas. And the best way to define schema, or one of the best ways, is to actually do the work and adjust as we go. So I did a lot of work, I think, on this page, the lifecycle MD, which defines kind of in a text way or markdown way what we are trying to do with lifecycle management of the DPU and APU devices. And I think I shared it previously, but I'll share again. I created a library in Python called DPU Redfish under PyDPU project that already defines account management, certificate management, BMC, IMC or AMC, whatever we call it, the CPU complex, and how we do the update service on DPUs and APUs. I start to test it already with the cards that I have in my lab, but you're all welcome to start doing the work as well and test these things with your cards. So Marvell here on the call, Intel here, Aga, I would appreciate if you will take a look and start testing this. And
yeah, I'm sure we will incorporate that in our validation process. So that's very helpful.
Yeah, Marvel is also working on it. Yeah.
What I'm missing currently is I'm missing Aga from Intel. I'm missing the IMC Redfish server drop. So I don't have any code of actual server for Redfish that I can
know
with. So.
I know we are following the releases process, and I think you got the response recently about what is the date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. So that and Marvell Rahul also, right? Well, I need a Redfish server for Marvell to start testing with.
Yeah, I got your message last week. Yeah, working on it.
And again, what if you have like Aga and Rahul, if you have internal drops that it doesn't have to be perfect, but at least 1-2 commands even up and running. What I usually do is I use DMTF standards tool to do the record of the Redfish servers. Then I can spin it up in a container again using the DMTF tools I helped co-create as well. And then we can run the CI/CD pipeline. So with every drop that you have, we can have different folders, one for Marvell, one for Intel, one for NVIDIA, one for American Sun or whatever. We can have those folders with the data and we can spin up those servers and start testing. So at least the infrastructure want to be ready. So even if we have like some basic, if you're all using OpenBMC or whatever, starting code, so I would really love to get sooner than later any kind of Redfish recorder, so I can start playing with this.
Do you when you say when you say recorder, do you mean the actual the
mock-up creator? Yes.
well
So yeah,
you mean the snapshot
exactly.
mock-up that
Yeah,
records, like takes an active management controller and tries to record everything about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I post two more links in the chat. One is Redfish Mockup Creator. This is actually, you give it an IP address and the credentials, and it goes and fetches everything from the Redfish server, whether it's iDRAC, ILO, IMC, whatever Redfish that you have, and stores it locally in the file system. And I want to create 3 folders, 3, 4, 5 folders, one per vendor with the saved content. And then the second link that I shared is Redfish Mockup Server. So this mockup server is Spinup's web server with that folder data that you recorded previously. So you can do all the testing like with a real server. So most of the code that we have can be tested with these 2 tools. One is dumps, and one is using the dump to spin up the web server. Very useful was for me previously to use that. So I encourage everybody to look at this, and this is what I'm looking for Intel and Marvell immediately, is to have this and record them and yeah, use them.
It's a very common approach that people are starting to take with Redfish specifically, especially to do troubleshooting, because for most vendors, the Redfish endpoint is somewhat of a moving target, or it evolves as time moves on, and the standard also is evolving too. So you kind of need to have that point in time reference to be able to go back to and understand it.
Yeah, Boris, I've taken the action item for Marvel and working on it. Yeah, I'll get back as soon as possible.
Same here.
Thank you. I also want to ask where people want to host those recorded dumps. If there is any preference, do we need to create a new repo for that, or like I'm really open to suggestions?
So somewhat unrelated, or maybe very related. I have a coworker at Red Hat that is interested in starting a cross-project repository of captured schemas that have been recorded for devices. And I wonder if there is a wider need. Specifically, what they're kind of experiencing is that that drift or change with vendors, and they're finding that stuff just changes just a little bit, but it's enough that can start throwing off logic or how to handle special casing. So it seems like there's a wider need beyond just OPI to make some of that data visible. I can probably ping them and see if they're available to join at some point soon.
Yeah, this is great. I would be very interested in that. But specifically on the redfish dumps, once we create them, I was looking for a place where we can put them, whether people would like to be hosted on lifecycle repo or a completely new repo. I'm really open to suggestions. So
I think it fits into somewhere around the redfish examples that we have, so that we do not create any, more spaces, because it already is difficult to look at all these
to
pieces.
navigate. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I found the perfect place. I'll put it there. What I have from NVIDIA right now, and TBD from Intel and Marvell, as we discussed previously.
Of course, I'll go ahead and message that coworker to get them to try and join next week.
Sounds good.
So what else do we have to discuss this week? Well, if there's nothing else, then I guess we can wrap up for today.
Yeah, I just wanted maybe to ask about the status on where we are. Did we try to go to the MTF forum with the PLDM sensors? Is there any update on that part?
So I thought so it's been a couple weeks and when we talked to Yuval, and I thought that was the outcome, that he was going to take that and make a proposal. I'm not sitting in that committee, so I don't know if he was able to do that.
Not yet. He didn't do it yet.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a question, so there's a lot of states and sensors that are defined in that set state PLDM document. I don't know if anybody uses any of them outside of the NIC model. You know, I don't know how many are actually implemented in the industry. Guess no
In
one else
term-
knows.
Oh, you're asking if someone else has an idea. I don't know.
Yeah, like if anybody knows if like NVMe drives do a lot of support of these things, or you know, if you know, OC, you know, servers designed for OCP have that. I haven't seen it anywhere outside of like thermal reporting and you know, reporting for transceiver modules and things like that. I don't see a lot of the other states being used, even though they're defined. I guess I can Google it and see if there's some stuff out there.
I personally haven't either, but I haven't operated that deep in hardware.
Yeah.
That's like a layer below, like, or two below where I've ever thought of interacting. But honestly, it does explain a lot with like how vendor BMCs tend to behave and tend to populate data and tend to also not work sometimes. So it really does start to explain a lot of that behavior once you read the PLDM spec and all the supporting documents and go, oh, this makes more sense now. Either fortunately or unfortunately.
Reflects a little of the reality, I guess. Probably.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was my only comment.
Okay. Well, everyone, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
See you next
bye.
week.
Thanks.
Thank you.